Hello, my marvellous sausages. Have you ever heard of the Titan Bonk build? Loads of people talk about how great it is. Basically, you go around smashing people with your hammer, not having relations with them. Now, I thought I'm going to put together a Titan Bonk build and see, actually, if it's any good for your average player like myself. Now, when you look at the footage of a Titan legging around using this Bonk build, it is very impressive. It's absolutely staggering how quickly they take out higher powered enemies, and you're surrounded in sunspots and you just seem to be taking everything down all at once. Well, if it's in front of you, it's basically dead. And this kind of is true about the build. But first of all, let me show you how I've put my Titan Bonk build together. So first things first, you need your Sunbreaker Titan, because, you know, we're throwing hammers, which is nice. You could have your spinny one on the Burning Wall, but I prefer this, the Hammer of Sol. Next, now we got a Rally Barricade. Doesn't really matter what you pick here, or it doesn't really matter what you pick for your jump, but this is vitally important. It's your throwing hammer, because this gets stronger and stronger and stronger as you use it. And also, you get healed in a burst of solar light that gives you cure as well when you pick it up after you've killed something. It's very, very useful and completely important to this build. And then grenades-wise, depending on what you want to do, if you're going into higher level content, take in this, your healing grenade, because you just bung that on the floor and it'll instantly give you restoration as well. And of course, it'll help your allies around you too. Next, we'll have a look at the aspects we're using. We've got Sol Invictus here, so any solar ability final blows with, of course, your throwing hammer and defeating your scorched targets will create these sunspots, and your abilities will regenerate faster, and your super drains more slowly while standing in one of those babies. So make sure you throw a hammer down when you're standing in your sunspot. Anyway, and they also apply Scorch, and entering a sunspot applies Restoration. This is fantastic because when you kill something with your hammer, you're going to be making sunspots absolutely everywhere, and then when you pick the hammer up, you'll get Cure as well, and you've got Restoration ticking over too. So they all kind of feed into each other, which is excellent. And then we've got Roaring Flames. Now, final blows the solar abilities, so again, that's a throwing hammer, or ignitions. Now, ignitions come when you add stacks of Scorch to people, which you're going to be doing a lot of. It increases the damage of your solar abilities, and that stacks 3 times. So it's going to make your Bonk hammer even more powerful. Now, talking about the power of your Bonk hammer, we've got an exotic here which enhances that even more, and it's called the old Synthesps. Not the old Synthesps, just the Synthesps. Now, the Synthesps, what they do is they increase your melee lunge range and give you extra super damage and melee damage as well when you're surrounded by gits. But if you look at the little statage here and what they do, it'll increase your super by 50% damage, which is very, very good when you're surrounded, but it'll give your melee 200% damage on top as well, which is completely excellent. So then you roll that in, of course, with the other aspect of the Roaring Flames, and you really do start giving extraordinary kick-ins. Now then, we've got all these here set up ready to go. That makes us pretty mean. Let's have a look at the fragments. Now, these are kind of your choice, but this is what I've decided to use, which I find very useful. First of all, I've got Ember of Searing, so defeating scorched targets and energy creates a fire sprite. And when you pick up a fire sprite, it gives you grenade energy, which is very handy when you've got your healing grenade. You can bang that in the floor, and then you can get your restoration up straight away when you get into trouble. We've got Ember of Empyrean, so solar weapon or ability final blows, there you go with your hammer, extend the duration of restoration and radiant, incredibly useful. Then we've got Ember of Solace, radiant and restoration effects applied to you have an increased duration. That's 12 seconds for the radiant. And then finally we've gone for Ember of Torches. That, of course, will make you radiant as well with a powered melee attack, which we're doing all the time with our hammer. So you can see how all this folds in incredibly well to get lots and lots of kills. Now, looking at your stats, what you're looking for is to get your resilience as high as possible. Tier 10, if possible there. I've got 101. That's as close as I can get. Very, very useful. Makes you like a tank, which is great. And then the next thing I'd put it into would be your grenades. Ideally, if you can get that up to 100, you're laughing, because your healing grenade is always going to be there to create that restoration splash to get you out of any trouble. Now, before we have a quick look at the mods I've also stuck in as well, I want to talk to you about this, the tractor cannon. This is more useful in higher level content because what it does is when you shoot a git with it, it applies a 30% debuff to them, which means that you get a 30% damage increase on them as well. So you roll that in with your hammer bonkage, and you really are going to town on some of the bigger guys. This is why you can see when you watch videos with people throwing their Titan Bonk hammers, slamming bosses into the ground incredibly quickly. So this is a very, very good thing to have, and it's also very easy to get. And in order to get it, you need to go and see Shohan in the Cosmodrome, and then he'll give you something called Maeve's Key. Ooh, there's going to be a mystery cache that you might have to spend hours going to find. No, it isn't. It's right behind you, just in this little cubby hole there. So you want to go in, open up the chest, it'll be marked on your map, and there you go. You got yourself a tractor cannon straight away, which is incredibly useful, not for just these builds, but for any other build as well. So there we are, there's a little hint for you there, but you don't have to use that. You can use whatever power weapon you want. Now, quickly looking at armor mods, well, it's whatever you fancy really, but this is what I'm using and I find it very useful. We got hands-on so I get super energy from melee kills, loads of melee going on, solar siphon from solar weapon kills, and heavy ammo finder there too. On the Synthesps, it's we've gone for font of vigor, so I get a bonus to strength when I've got an armor charge, which of course then makes my melee charge a little bit faster, always handy to have. Impact induction will give you a melee attack, reduces your grenade cooldown, so grenade energy, and we've also got heavy handed, so melee orbs from punching things in face. For the jackets it's whatever damage you want to tackle, really, so whatever threat it is, I'd match this if it's a void threat or arc threat or whatever. But I've also stuck in here as well, charged up. You could double up this as well, but it allows you to carry more stacks of armor charge. My boots, I've got a solar weapon surge there, so armor charges will increase my solar weapon damage. In here you can put in what you want. Innovation reduces grenade cooldown each time you pick an orb of power. Whichever way you want to do it, if you want to be super cautious, put in recuperation there too. And on my mark here, let's have it. On your marks, get set, go. I've gone for time dilation, so your armor charges decay a lot more slowly, so you get more bang for your buck with them, which means that when we've got the font of vigor on, our strength stat is going to be up a lot longer. That's what that means in practice. I've got 1-2 finisher, which restores melee abilities whenever I do a finisher, and I've also gone for proximity ward, gain a powerful overshield while performing a finisher too. But really, you can stick in what you'd like. Now, there's one other thing I want to show you, and it's to do with your controller buttons. Depending on whether you're on console or on PC using mouse and keyboard, binding it to this will really help you out, because if you have a little look at your standard controls in the default, what you're going to find is that auto melee is bound to R1. Now, what auto melee means is that if they're close to you, you'll do a little punch, a doof doof, an uncharged melee, and if they're at the right distance, then it'll use your throwing hammer or whatever it is you've got. In this case, it's our throwing hammer. But what we want is for our charged melee to be used every time we press that button, so it doesn't do the little one when you want to do the big one. And that means if they're close up, you can slam them with the hammer. So what you want to do is you want to go into your auto melee, and I've just basically stuck that on R3 there. There we are, thanks very much indeed. And I've gone into the bindings and I've changed that to R1. So every time I press R1, which is my normal melee hit, that's what I'm going to get. I'm going to get a charged melee hit as well. And you can combine the uncharged with the R3 button, which is also your finisher, so you just get the muscle memory going of using a thumbstick to tap that, or whatever it is your preferred key binding is on the keyboard. This is really, really useful, and I recommend you do this. It's incredibly handy for this bonking build. I mean, a bonk build. So, what's it like to use? Well, here we go. Let me show you. You wallop them with the hammer, that's it. And there you go. You got a sunspot that kicks everything off. Your Radiance, your Sol Invictus, which is very, very useful. The sunspots kill the gits. Your Radiance is keeping my health up all the time, look, whenever I'm in it, which is brilliant. There's the worst thing about this build. You miss with your hammer, you've got to run and pick it up. Now, it depends on your shot and your skill level. I'm not great throwing the hammer, so I can sometimes spend a lot of my time running around. But as with everything, practice does help. And the worst thing about it is if you do throw your hammer and miss, it's really difficult to find it sometimes, because it can go screaming off all the way into the distance. But look, it is very, very good. That is the downside, I would say. But you're giving kickers, let's sort this guy out here, look there, bang, ooh, and again, bang, see? And I'm using the melee that's bonded to my R1 button, so I'm never doing the little one. I'm always doing the big one. Careful of the explosives there. And then we'll just keep on going through and keep on walloping it in there as well. For the higher level content, this is just like a normal Lost Sector on Neomuna. And as we know, Neomuna, they are all a little bit tougher here on Neomuna to give you a bit of a challenge. But I did find it useful in the higher level content as well. I have taken it into a Legend Lost Sector and used it there. It's very, very good. My biggest downfall was my skill with the hammer. So once I've missed, I found myself, well, totally buggered really until my hammer recharged back, look. And sometimes, if you're not used to the healing grenades, like I did then, I threw a healing grenade, look, into the middle of the room, but you can pick it up, which is very useful. But of course, you can get that mistake there. So look, my hammer's down now, so I'm going to have to wait for it to get charged up again. I can stick my in there as well. That gives me my grenades and my restoration there too, look, if I'm having worries. And don't forget as well, I missed a finisher there. So let's see if we can get a finisher on him here. And boom. Oh, it's back up anyway, but that would have restored my melee. And there we go. Hammer is back. Very, very useful. Then, of course, you've got the biotic enhancements, which is the extra damage boost from your Synthesps. And you've got so many things going on, look, in the column there, that sometimes you don't know if it's active. You just have to trust that it's active, because it will activate when you're surrounded by turnips. Goodbye, Goblin. So all in all, this is a tremendous build. It's brilliant for Titans, but what it might do is take you out of your comfort zone a little bit and brings you right in close sometimes, and you might not like that. Sometimes I like to say, well, far away really, and pick people off from a distance, but it's really worth getting in there, because look at the kickings it gives. It's brilliant. I heartily recommend it. And if you enjoyed the vid, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you'll do with your bonk build, if there's anything that you've done differently, or even if you're first just taking it out for a spin. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall speak to you all again very soon. Sausage! Oof!